The following program is a sports handicapping show. That's right, we will be discussing sports betting and all kinds of other gambling stuff, including game predictions. As you know, not every bet will win, but we do our best. Feel free to use this information at your own risk, and remember, wager wisely, folks.
Broadcasting from the Vegas Video Network studios, live from the Las Vegas Strip, Covers.com presents Vegas SportsDay. And now from the sports betting capital of the world, here are your hosts, Teddy and the Professor.
It's Friday in Sin City, and you are watching the weekend preview edition of Vegas SportsDay, the pulse of the sports betting world. I'm your host, Teddy Covers, joined as always by my esteemed colleague, the Professor, Dave Malinsky.
Coming up today, the stars come out for this NBA weekend, but do we get our telescopes out or close the blinds? Why one college basketball team wants to do anything but keep on trucking. And we know some of you have given up alcohol for Lent, but that's okay on Saturday night. We've got a nice bottle of Orange Crush for you.
Dave, did you give up alcohol for Lent?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, you don't have to give up anything for Lent.
That is true, and I rarely drink anyway, so it doesn't matter a whole lot from my perspective. But what does matter, what I am interested in, is your first take on a Friday. What did you see last night that you want to share with our audience today?
You know, we talk about pendulums so much in basketball. And boy, there were extremes all over the board last night. Probably the most fascinating one, and one that was not good for our pockets, Louisville-Cincinnati. Louisville goes 1 for 14 from three-point range. Kyle Kurrick, the leading scorer, he doesn't make a shot. He goes 0 for 11, misses all 7 of his three-pointers. Now, if somebody tells you that early in the day, you think, wow, Louisville's going to get blown out. And yet, with all that having happened, last shot of the game, 1 second left, there's Kurrick wide open at the top of the key. If he just makes one shot the entire night, Louisville still gets the money. He had to miss every one for that game to fall the way it did. Works for us going forward. This Louisville team that we think brings excellent value heading to the tournament, sometimes a loss like that isn't bad. Yeah, you lose a little money there, but it opens the door for you to make more following up with Louisville in the games ahead. You were probably watching some of Louisville and so many others last night. Your most memorable impression?
Well, we spent the whole week talking about these revenge matchups, rematches, things we want to look at when teams face off against each other for a second time, or as we're going to see in conference tournaments in the weeks to come, even for a third time. Talking about the elements that we want to pay attention to, and yet while still concentrating on things that can reverse themselves between the first meeting and the second meeting. But a couple games last night I want to highlight that where no reversal of fortunes, no reversal of trends, where we start to think, all right, maybe there are some matchup issues involved. Certainly the Hawks Magic stands out as a game where, or as a series now, where Atlanta, it doesn't matter who's on the floor for the Hawks, doesn't matter if they don't have Al Horford or Joe Johnson, doesn't matter who their head coach is, whether it's Woodson, Drew, it hasn't mattered. Atlanta simply matches up well against Orlando. They've had their number straight up, they've had their number against the spread, and this is not a short-term trend. I got caught on a wrong one last night with Colorado. Boy, that was a wrong one. First score when I turn on the game, Colorado's down 14-5. Okay, hang in there, guys. Next score I look up, it's 27-8, Stanford, ball game over. And that was much like the first meeting between the two teams, where it's a tie score, second half, and next thing you know, Stanford was on a 32-5 run, takes control of the game, and blows Colorado off the floor. Now we saw it happen last night on what had been a very strong home court for the Buffaloes. Last time, Colorado lost by 24 points or more at home. Same team, Stanford, back in 2007. So you see these type of results. We look for turnarounds. Sometimes we've got to look for things to stay the same. And again, box scores aren't always going to tell you. Your eyes are the best way to see when a team's got matchup issues. They're not likely to be able to solve. Unfortunately for me, my eyes deceived me in that Colorado game the first time around. Won't happen again. Dave, we've touched on some great letters this week. And once again, several come in with a similar theme. So this time we're going to send the royalties on the question to Mark. and a take on building a bankroll. This is what
We
Mark
said royalties?
Well, you wrote it. Yeah, royalties. We got to send him the fat check. What are the royalties from this show?
Have you seen any?
I'm still waiting.
Okay.
They're coming, but checks in the mail, Mark. You can count on it. Mark says, love the show. I think Teddy needs to grow a March Madness mustache. Mark, I grew up. I had a mustache for one show after Thanksgiving when I grew that little beard over Thanksgiving. Me with a mustache, bad combination. But I'm sure Dave will touch on that more when he gets a chance. Mark also asked, and do you guys really place bets with the janitor, or is that some kind of an inside joke? Yes, it's an inside joke. Dave, where did that come from? Why do we use the janitor as a guy we're placing bets with? You don't know?
This might not be a we.
What do you mean we? You're the guy that always says that, we go see the janitor out in the...
Yeah, well, maybe one of us has an account.
In that case, I'm not in the know. For Dave, it's real. For me, it's not.
Guys occasionally got a soft number.
Apparently
you take what you can get these days.
Mark goes on, if it's true, I think he needs to make a guest appearance on the show. Funny stuff. And yes, that is humor, not seriousness in terms of we're living in Las Vegas.
As far as you know.
Making bets with the janitor out in the hallway. Now, finally, let's get to Mark's question. He says, I usually start my account with about $300 or so and try to build it from there. What betting strategies do you recommend to build my bankroll? Should I just bet heavy on 3 games, $100 each? Or should I do small 2-game parlays, action reverses, if bets, $50 a pop? Or go heavy on 1 game I feel real confident about, betting the whole 300? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Mark. Okay, interesting question, Mark, and one that's worthy of some discussion. Dave, how would you go about answering it?
We can deal with the mustache first. And that gets to be a little bit, by the way, of an age issue, because at a certain point, a mustache attempt becomes spilled milk. You'll know what we mean on that front. And that means you've gone a little bit too far to bring that back into play. When it's more salt than pepper, no more stashes. Here's the problem with this question, and it's building a bankroll through this is much different than managing a bankroll. One of the classic jokes that Lem Banker used to tell back in the 90s, and he told the same one at several different Stardust banquets. Okay, guys, I get asked all the time, how do you make $1 million betting sports? Here's how you do it. First, get $1 million. Now, the third time you hear it, okay, it's getting a little bit old, but that's actually the truism. This is not an easy way to build a bankroll. When you're starting, let's say, a level like $300, here's the way almost everyone who's very successful does it, and it's a percentage of bankroll that you're betting to manage it properly. And you're talking about 2 or 3%. That's what the pros are doing. Now, we did a graph back in the fall that shows actually what that can do for you. The expectation, if you went 55% of your bets at 3%, that might not sound like a lot. But you know what? If you bet 200 games in football season, and that's your success rate, 55%, just betting 3% of your bankroll, you've got a 33% return on that original bankroll over 200 games, let's say over 4 months. Where else are you going to get a 33% return on your money in 4 months' time? It doesn't happen. That's why this is so good. Problem is, if you've got $300 and we're telling you to go bet 3%, you don't want to listen to us. You're going to be out there betting $9 or $10, and it's going to take forever to build it up. So there's not a great answer to that question except to decide, what is your goal? And make that your starting point. You want to build a bankroll this way? That's a difficult starting point.
Mustache. That's one of my favorite lines ever from Family Guy. A good episode to look up if you're a Family Guy type fan. But, mustaches won't be happening anytime soon. Let's get back to the question. And again, I normally counsel people who are just trying to build a bankroll that you need, and you're starting with a small initial investment. You're starting with $300. Yeah, 3% of $300, not a realistic wagering amount. You know, I mean, the bottom line is that it'll take you forever if you're starting betting $10 a game to build a bankroll where you want it to be. That being said, I'm not an advocate of, okay, well, here's my whole bankroll. I'm just going to throw it on this game. You want to find some kind of a middle ground. So of your choices that you listed, $50 bets, that makes sense to me. $25 bets, that makes sense to me. Try to grind out a little profit, build that 300 to 500 or 600 or 800 or 1,000, and then you can work on increasing your wager size. But to start building a bankroll, Again, you can do it with $300. People have done it with $300, but it is a slow and steady grind. That may be the single most important thing that we talk about on the show. You're not going to get rich quick. This is not a get rich quick scam. We're not going to sell you real estate or tell you, give you Don Lapre stuff. Bottom line, slow and steady will win this race. We've seen it happen. It can happen to you as well. Good luck. Anything more to add?
Yeah, because, of course, you'll get the royalties since we used your question on the air as a way to build that up. The difficulty, I know the temptation is find the one game that I like and let it ride. But, we talk in the postmortem every day and in our opening takes every day about these odd assortment of bounces that create results in sporting events. Here's the difficulty, and you're going to get this from just about anyone who's a real pro in this industry. It's hard to find a game in the current marketplace with better than about a 65% edge. That's about a gold standard. Any one game, no matter how good it looks, it's about as big as it gets. So that's your realistic. It's not like, here's an 80% game where I can double the bankroll immediately. Now, 65 is about as good as it gets. A lot of the games we're out there playing every day, we think the expectation is 55 to 57. That's a good edge, but a 55 or 57 isn't good to roll the dice on the whole 300. Wish it was easier, but if it was easier, we probably wouldn't be here because the sports books wouldn't be open.
Interesting question for discussion. Mark, thanks for sending it in, and you can join in. Please send your questions. The address, of course, SportsDay@Covers.com. We answer as many as we can on air. You can follow us on Twitter @VegasSportsDay. And, of course, you can get involved in the community. Active threads and discussions going right now at Covers.com/posting forum. And, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that on Monday we will be dark. No show on Monday after this weekend preview edition. The next show will be Tuesday. And, of course, I would also be remiss if I did not mention, at least briefly, the pre-March Madness tournament party. Details forthcoming, but make sure you're in Vegas at least by Wednesday night. If you're coming into town, you can come check out Dave and I at a live remote. Details to follow, but those details will follow. Looks like it's really going to happen.
So the show will be dark on Monday. The question is, should you turn the lights out on the NBA all through this weekend? That's coming up next. You're watching Vegas Sports Day.
Are you looking for the latest odds, the fastest scores, the most important trends, and the best matchups and stats? Are you looking for the key late-breaking information that can make you a winner? Well, Covers.com has the answer. The world's largest sports betting community gives you a front row seat in the heart of the action, from the opening lines to the final scores. If you want to stay ahead of the game, Covers covers the numbers.
No pressure. Hi, I'm Dennis Silvers from, can't think of the name of my damn show. Golf and other four-letter words, and you're watching the Vegas Video Network, I think.
Okay, so the NBA All-Star Game is more for entertainment purposes than anything else. The nature of the sport allows for that, and frankly, these are players that like to put on a show. But when we start to break down the All-Star Game, of course, the East favored in Sunday's NBA matchup, -1.5 total in that ball game, 280.5. But when it comes to crunch time of the fourth quarter of these games, it may be an exhibition. Yeah, it may be an entertainment purposes only type of ball game. But fourth quarter comes around, we do see the intensity level rise. Both teams try to win the game. 7 of the last 11 have been decided by 6 points or less in regulation, including each of the last 2 years. Last year the West wins 148-143. The year before the East wins 141-139. So we're seeing, in general, competitive contests in these fourth quarters. But is it really a game where these teams are going to try to win down the stretch? Does that mean there's enough integrity here for us to break it down, Dave?
The old rule of thumb. We don't have to bet every game, but they do have to put a line on every game. So even an all-star game, they've got to put it on the board. It means we take a little time to take a look and just see if they might have come up flat with part of it. Where do we start? Naturally, you go to the players. Take a look at the rosters, mostly focusing on the starting lineups. First for the East, Tom Thibodeau from Chicago will be the head coach. His own point guard, Derrick Rose, running the show. Teammates, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James playing together. Carmelo Anthony has had a week to get back into a playing rhythm now. And Dwight Howard. That rounds it out for the East.
Yeah, in the Western Conference, the head coach is going to be Scott Brooks of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the team with the best record in the Western Conference so far. And the West has a pair of teammates playing together. You have Chris Paul at the point playing with the power forward of Blake Griffin, and you have Kobe and Andrew Bynum as the starting center in the West. I think that's certainly warranted. Kevin Durant being the fifth player in that grouping, and of course he plays for Brooks. So the West as a team, decent chemistry there. Guys that are used to playing with one another.
Reason we focus on the starters is these are the guys most likely on the court for the end game when it gets serious. And the nice thing about the All-Star game is you've got some guys on the court that like to win. Derrick Rose, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Chris Paul. These are guys that are going to get after it pretty good if it is close down the stretch. So our idea is, okay, if it is close, are there advantages there? We think there just may be. When you look at these rosters, doesn't the East defensively look a lot better than the West in a close game at crunch time? Chris Paul, a terrific creator at point guard, not a great defender. Kevin Durant, good scorer, just an okay defender, and he'd be the one who would have to be guarding LeBron James. Blake Griffin, not a good defender at all at this stage of his NBA career. We think the West may be just a little bit vulnerable. Some of these guys on the East, Dwight Howard, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, Derrick Rose, they can D up at crunch time. If this game stays down around the pick'em range, yeah, maybe we look a little bit that way.
2 years ago, in that 141 to 139 game, the total was sitting at 262. Last year, the 148 to 143 game, the total was sitting at 270. Well, yeah, the two games went over the total by a combined 39 points. But look where the total is this year, 280.5. I don't ever recall ever seeing an All-Star game or any other game with a higher total than that. The markets have adjusted to the realities of the All-Star break, that up-tempo pace and that lack of defense for at least, 3.5 quarters or so. 280.5, can't recommend an over at that particular price. Now, one other factor worth considering here, the struggles, the success the previous year's loser has had in the next meeting. Losing team 9-2 against the spread the following season. These guys, I'm not going to call it revenge, but they want a little payback, no question. And we saw, again, last year, the West emerging victorious. This year, it's the East as short chalk.
So maybe a little bit to work with there, but there's a weekend college basketball board that brings a whole lot to work with. We're going to start tonight in the hallowed halls of the Ivy League, where one particular Ivy notion could turn out to be poison. You're watching Vegas Sports Day.
Hi, I'm Chris Phillips from Talk Tales, and you're watching the Vegas Video Network. And if you stop by the studio, our producer Scott's going to buy everybody a drink.